Hey everybody, welcome to Bestie Book Reviews. I'm here with my bestie Mandy.
And I'm here with my bestie, Jessica.
So let's talk about nanny romances. That's what today's video is all about. But before we get started talking about those nannies, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. We are still doing our Road to 1K giveaway. We're still giving away free books. So when we hit 750, what are we giving away, Mandy?
Yeah. All right. You could win 9 Minutes by Beth Flynn. This is a signed copy. It's a fantastic book. You definitely want to read it and you definitely want to win it. So hit that subscribe button and follow us on Instagram for an extra entry.
Yes, definitely. That will be one of our top books of the year for both of us.
Yes.
Yeah. So, okay. So nanny romances. How do you feel about them, Mandy? Because I love them. I love me a good nanny romance.
I like them too, as long as they're done well.
Yeah, it's a trope that's done quite a bit. So there has to be something in the trope that's a little bit different, or in the book.
The writing has to be really on point, and there has to be, I like a unique look to it as well.
Yeah.
But yes, I do enjoy them when they're done right. I didn't have as many as I thought I did.
Oh, I had a whole page worth. So I had a lot. Okay. I had quite a few. So, okay, so let's get started with some nannies.
Are you ready?
Am I going first again?
Yes.
Dang it, Mandy. Yes.
Go.
Okay, so the first book that I have for you is last on the list. This is by Amy Dawes. This is picking up my ring lights because apparently we did it glossy and not matte. So this is about our heroine whose name is Cozy, and she is on her. She's in what they would call her gap year, her self-appointed gap year. She's doing anything she can to not commit to anything. So she's all about having fun in her gap year and not making large commitments. Her sister begs her to apply for or to interview for a nanny position. Her sister runs a company. She needs her to do this. It's for a very high profile client. And so she agrees to do that. And that is where she meets our heroine, who is Max, our hero, who is Max. So Max has a daughter, and this kid has like the regimented schedule of no fun at all. Like even her fun is scheduled in, kind of a thing. And he is a big millionaire CEO, and he is very regimented himself. And so when he interviews her, she's like, yeah, no, I ain't making plans. And nope, we're just going to have fun. Nope, no plans. And so he does not want to hire her right away. But his daughter falls in love with Cozy, and he can't say no. And so she moves into the little guest cottage that they have behind the house to become the nanny. And she brings the fun. Like they don't realize how much fun they need because they're just too regimented. And so I loved the quirky shenanigans that happen in this book. The things that she gets up to are just, I laughed a lot. It was great. Loved this book.
My first nanny book is probably my favorite nanny book, probably one of my favorite books of all time, and that is Mr. Masters by T.L. Swan. This is about Brielle and Julian. Brielle just straight out lies and pretends that she's qualified to be a nanny. She's 26. I think her and her friend live like in Australia, and they're going to come over to Europe to be nannies. And her friend actually has some experience, but she doesn't. She thinks she's going to go work for a Julie, I think is what she thinks, and not Julian. And so when she gets there, she's expecting to, be nannying for this woman, and it's Julian and his 2 kids. Julian is quite a bit older than her. He's 39, so there's definitely that age gap. But sometimes age gaps don't work for me. This one does because he actually talks about things that make sense for their age gap. She's a lot younger than him. He's older. He has 2 kids. Anyways, I digress because I love age gap. She gets there and is kind of surprised to find it's this guy. He's really kind of standoffish towards her. So she's like, ooh, I don't know if this is really going to work. But she doesn't want to go home. So she's just going to try and make it work as best she can. And she really kind of, like in Jessica's book, she kind of brings some life back to this family. There's kind of a little bit of a mystery of where the mom is that we find out later that kind of impacts the story a bit. So one of my favorite scenes in this book is she takes the kids to the golf course while he's out golfing. And he, like I said, they don't have a lot of fun happening in their lives right now. And she decides to rent the golf cart and take them golfing. And they're just having a great old time. And she runs Mr. Masters over with the golf cart. It is the funniest thing I've probably read in a book. Like it's definitely in the top like 10 funniest things I've ever read.
Mhm.
It is hilarious. So Mr. Masters is like kind of closed off to her, and they start to kind of develop feelings, but he wants to keep their relationship very strict, like you're the nanny, that's it. So he starts sending her emails and requesting her presence at the hotel. And so they kind of have a fling that way. But obviously she's going to want more. And so that kind of takes them in that route of how they're going to work this out. I love the fact that this couple actually behaves like a couple. They have disagreements, they work through them. We don't wait until we get to the 70% mark for them to have a disagreement and break up and then get back together. Like they're actually like an actual real couple. I love how she wrote them that way. I really enjoyed this book. It's full of fun. It's T.L. Swan, so it's got some good scenes in
Mhm.
there as well. But this is probably like, it's definitely one of my favorite books, but definitely a top nanny rec.
Okay. It was good. I did enjoy it too when I read it. So, yeah. So I read this one I guess I read it a couple of months back, but I'm still thinking about this one. So this is called No Small Bet by Samantha Christie. Samantha Christie wrote my favorite firefighting series as well. So just putting that out there. So this is about Hawk and Addie. So Hawk finds out in the first part of the book that he is a dad. He had a fling with someone. She was killed, or she died during childbirth, and he has this baby, and he is a playboy, and he wants nothing to do with this whole baby situation. He is going to inherit a large sum of money from his grandfather, and his grandfather comes in and says, look, this isn't going to work. You're going to get a nanny. It's going to be one nanny, not two. You're not getting a night nanny. You're going to participate. You have to spend X amount of time with the baby. I have to see this. The nanny is going to be reporting to me, and you have to do, all of these things, and it has to happen for a year. You have to keep your baby, because he leaves the baby in the hospital. He's like, no, I don't want her. And he leaves the baby there and doesn't go get her right away. And the grandpa finally steps up and is like, no, go get your kid. It's time to step up to the plate. You're a grown man, behave like one. And he gives him a list of things that he wants to do. You have to keep your baby for the first year, and then you can decide what you want to do, because grandpa's thinking he's going to get attached at this point. So then we see Addie come into the picture. She has just finished nannying. She's nannies all the time. She's in between nanny jobs, or she's going to do something different. She's going to go back to school. And the woman at the nanny agency calls her and is like, we're desperate for someone. You're the best of the best. She shows up. Baby girl doesn't even have a name at this point in time. He takes weeks to name this poor baby. And she instantly falls in love with this baby. Now, Addie is an amputee. She lost part of her leg, due to some stupidity when she was younger. And she can't really afford a new prosthetic. It's the same one she originally had. And it'll like fall off, like when she's like turning around and stuff. He sees that brings a little bit of comedy to it. But it's really sad, because you have a dad who just doesn't think he wants to have this connection or have this child. Grandpa's forcing him to do it in order to get his inheritance. And then the nanny gets brought in, and she instantly falls in love with this baby. And it's a whole whirlwind. It's a whole situation. Loved this book so much. It was a 5-star read for me. I loved the whole situation, to see a reluctant father turn around and come to terms with his situation.
Every time you've talked about that book, I'm like, ooh, I need to read that one.
Yeah. Well, the third book in the series, I haven't read the second, but the third book in the series just came out. And I think it's a widow situation. All I know is I want to read it. I just want to read it. Just came out. So, yeah. Okay.
All right. Okay, my next nanny rec is called Love to Hate Her by Jay Shaman. This is a rock star romance, and this is about Viola, who dated Gus in high school. She breaks up with Gus, I think about a year after high school, because he's in this rock band and she knows he's been cheating on her left and right. So she breaks up with him and decides to kind of move on with her life. Well, Jasper and Gus are twins and they're in the band together. And so he's known Viola all through, their childhood and her dating his brother. And they were friends at one point in time, but, we're fast forwarding like 6, 7 years later. Jasper has a daughter who is autistic and he needs a nanny for her. Viola is the best qualified person to come and be the nanny while he goes on this tour. And because she's in a financial situation, she agrees to go. And so she's going to be nannying his daughter. Her ex is there as well. So that kind of throws a whole nother loop into this situation. The ex is kind of determined to get her back. She's not really interested in that because he was cheating on her. But we find out she's always kind of had a crush on Jasper and kind of maybe settled for Gus back in the day. So I wouldn't say it's a love triangle, but there's definitely this other presence there besides the fact that she's nannying for him and taking care of his little girl. I loved it. This was a solid 5-star one for me.
Okay. I have another. My next one's another reluctant father type situation. Didn't know he was going to be a daddy till he finds out that he's a daddy kind of situation, but I was here for it. So this is called Fresh Meat by Jasmine Miller. So our hero is Jace, and I use that term lightly for the beginning. He is a professional swimmer. So he has been living the high life of being this big sports star and, different girl, different night of the week, doing whatever he wants, traveling and just, being the playboy that he is. He's a playboy. And he finds out that he has a son. Something has happened to mom. And so he is given full custody of his little boy, who is a toddler at the time. And so he has gone from playboy to daddy overnight, and not in a good way, not daddy, but daddy. And he has this responsibility overnight. His mom steps in to try to help, but it's more work than what she can do. And so that's where she's like, you really need to hire a nanny. And that is where we see Millie come into the picture. Amelia, which they call Millie. So she comes into the picture, and his world is flipped upside down overnight, and it is very hard for him to come to terms with the fact that he is no longer a playboy, that he has a child. Oh, and now he's got a hot nanny to deal with. So this is I loved seeing him bond with his little boy. It's been several years since I read this book, so I don't want to say something that's not happening in this book and give you guys the wrong thing, but it's definitely worth reading. Yes.
Okay. My next nanny book is called Raptured by Tracy Delaney. This is part of her Rogues series. It's number 2. This series is probably better if you read it all together, but it can definitely be read as a standalone, especially if you're just looking for that nanny trope, because this one delivers. So this is about Oliver. Oliver's wife left him and his infant daughter. And so his daughter is now 7. And he is raising Annie on his own, but he needs a nanny. So we have Harlow. Harlow gets fired, goes home from work early, and finds her boyfriend cheating on her. Pretty shitty day, right? She goes out, gets drunk, and randomly kisses a guy. Then she's really desperate. She needs to find a job because she can't afford to live where she's living, and things are just, spiraling pretty quickly for her. So she needs to find a job. So she gets this interview to go be a nanny, and she shows up, and it is the drunk guy that she kissed, who's Oliver. This was a really good nanny read.
Okay, that's good. Sounds yummy. Might have checked that.
It was very yummy.
Yeah, I think this one, I've heard this one. The next one I talked about several times as far as nanny. I think it's a fairly popular one. I don't think it's extremely popular, but I think it's been talked about a few times. But we're going to talk about it again. I have it on this channel, so it's the first time for us. So
Okay, here we go.
got it. So this is A Nordic King by Karina Halley. This is a part of her series. She has a series, a royal series. I think this is number 2, but you can read it as a standalone. I did. I haven't read any of the other ones, and I totally had no problems. It is a standalone. So this is about Aurora, and she has been a nanny to aristocratic families for years. And she gets called up to come and be a nanny for 2 little girls. And she thinks it's just going to be another aristocratic family that she's worked with before. So she's trained to do that, to work with high profile families. And so she has to go to Denmark. That's where the families are at, or the family's at. And so she arrives in Denmark to find out that it is not just an aristocratic family that she is working for this time. It is the king of Denmark, who has just been widowed, and his 2 little girls. And so she becomes the nanny for King Axel and his daughters, and they're dealing with the trauma of losing mom. And there's also some secrets behind what was going on with mom and dad. And there's a whole lot of other stuff. He is very closed off. He is very cold. He is very quiet. But eventually, as we see, the fun nanny who tries to bring some fun into these poor girls' regimented lives, starts to bring some fun into dads as well. So, A Nordic King. Here you go. What?
Every time we do these recs, I'm like, oh, I need to go read that one. Now I need to go read this one.
That was another one that I read 3 years ago that is still, I still remember pieces of that book where I go, oh yeah. So yeah. Mm-hmm.
All right, okay. My next rec is pretty popular right now, but I am going to talk about it because it delivered on the nanny trope. And that is Caught Up by Liz Tomford. This is about Kai and Miller. Miller is a girl, just because that's a little confusing when you're reading this if you don't know. So Kai is a single dad. He's on the baseball team, and he has a 15-month-old son named Max. That was literally just kind of it was a one night stand type thing, and she just shows up and she's like, hey, here's your son, and this mom thing's not for me. Bye. And takes off. So he's been doing this for a little while on his own. He has a lot of guilt for missing like the first 6 months of his son's life. And he has a lot of guilt because he's playing baseball. And so he's gone a lot. But his team is really working with him, and they let him bring the nanny with him. And so his son can stay with them. But still, baseball, like being a professional baseball player, is really grueling. And so it does take a lot of his time. And he's just kind of struggling with that. And so his way of dealing with that is just to fire every nanny that he hires. So he does that. Like nannies last about a month, and then he fires them. And so Monty is his like the general coach, I think, for the team. Monty's like, you need to stop this, and this is what we're going to do. You're going to hire my daughter. My daughter's coming to stay here for the summer. You're going to hire her, and she's going to be the nanny. Done. So he's like pretty reluctant, but he's like, okay, like this is what we're going to do. Well, Miller is a famous pastry chef. Like she's winning tons of awards, going to be on the magazine covers, like all sorts of stuff. But she has hit a creative roadblock and cannot create anything. And so she's kind of panicking. So she quits her job and decides to take the summer off and go spend some time with her dad. And then there is some trauma and things that have happened in Miller's life that leave her kind of closed off. She doesn't want to settle down. She doesn't want to open herself up. She really loves like just traveling all the time and doing her chef thing. So now she's going to be a nanny, and she really starts to fall for Max, the little boy, and his dad. And that kind of throws a wrench into like what her lifelong plans were. And oh, it is so good. I loved it.
Do you like all the books in that series?
I do, yes.
Yeah. So, okay, ready for my last one?
I am.
I just read this week. You just heard about it earlier today because we both record, but these guys haven't too much. Anyway. Okay, so this is Forbidden Hearts by Corinne Michaels. So this is about Phoebe and Asher. So Phoebe has just returned from school early. She is in her I think it was a graduate program, and she left to do everything online. And her dad, who is the sheriff, or he's high up he's on the police force, but he's the boss of everybody. And he can't quite figure out why she left. She's not telling anybody why she left. There was a scandal at work or at school. We learned that up very early. We learn what it is pretty early on, but I'm not going to spoil that for you. But there was a scandal at college, so she has come home. Now she is fluent in ASL because she wants to be a doctor and work with the deaf community, and so that is her specialty. Now we have Asher, who has I think she's a 9-year-old little girl, and she's been deaf since birth. And he and the mom just had like a one night stand kind of thing. They were just friends. They remained friends, and nothing was there. There was no romantic involvement there. Asher has like a rule against being romantically involved with anybody anyway. So, he's never done that. And the mom has to go overseas for 3 months for work she has to go for a few months. And so he has his daughter all summer long. And they need a nanny who knows ASL. Now he gets a call from the nanny agency saying, yeah, we ain't got anybody. Sorry. And so he calls work to tell them that he's just been brought in as like the SWAT, like he's head of SWAT all of a sudden, and he's going places in his career. But he calls the office and says, I can't come in. I don't have anybody to stay with my daughter who knows ASL. And Phoebe's dad says, oh, but my daughter's home. And guess what? She can nanny. She's not doing anything. And she is fluent in ASL. Now she babysat I think her little girl's name was Olivia, back when she was a toddler one time. And the little girl cut her hair off, like buzzed it at the side, like cut her own hair and buzzed it. And so Asher's like, no, she was a train wreck. And he's like, you don't have any other choice. Now she's grown up, so she's not so much a train wreck. But this is a big age gap here as well. And she's in her 20s, he's pushing 40. And so age gap, nanny, it was yummy. You got the ASL going on, whatever the scandal is, it was great. Okay. So what is your last rec?
Okay, my last rec is The Wrong Kind of Love by Lexi Ryan. This is about Nicole, and Nicole finds out on her wedding day that her twin sister is pregnant with Nicole's fiance's, like the guy she's supposed to marry. In just a few hours, she's pregnant with his baby. Her twin sister is. So Nicole, pretty devastated, and she just leaves. She just runs. She's like, I'm out of here. So she takes off, and she gets to the airport, and she's like, I'm just gonna go on my honeymoon by myself. Good riddance to these people. But when she gets to the airport, she realizes that she has all of her sister's things, and her sister and her are twins. So she decides to take the flight that her sister had booked for right after her wedding, because her sister was going to bail town and hopefully not tell her that she was pregnant with her fiance's baby. So she takes the flight, and a mutual friend of theirs is there to pick her up from the airport. And she had already lined up a nannying job. So Nicole kind of like panics a little bit about like, what am I going to do? I'm not my sister, but I'm cut out to be a nanny. Probably, I can do this. So she decides to do it because she has nothing else to do. Like, she doesn't feel like she has a home to go back to. So this is what she decides to do. So she takes this job. And this is when she meets Ethan. Ethan is the dad. Ethan is kind of closed off, but Ethan's mom convinces her to take the job and to go ahead and pretend to be her sister Veronica and go forward with the nannying job, because Ethan is really kind of opposed to this, but there's a lot of stuff going on. But so the mom is like, no, you need to do this, but we just won't tell him that you're not Veronica, because he's not gonna handle that well. But she falls for him, and he kind of falls for her, but she's not who she says she is, but she is.
Mess. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes. I've read quite a few books in this series about the family, and I've really enjoyed it. But this was it's definitely a very different take on the nanny, because she's not who they hired.
She's not who she says she is. No.
Yeah.
No. I do have to say too, I love Elsie Silver's the second book in her series. Is it Powerless? It's Nanny as
so.
well. Yeah, and I love it, but we didn't want to bring that. I didn't want to talk about that one because it's so popular, so
Well,
popular.
and we have another nanny video that covers some other
Mm-hmm.
nannies. So this is like
Yes.
Nanny Rex part 2.
Part 2. All right, guys. So that is what we have for you for Nanny Rex this time around.
Make sure to check back on Mondays, Thursdays, and Saturdays, and Wednesdays through this year for new videos from us. And leave us some comments. Tell us all the bookish things about nannies. Do you like the nanny trope? Have you read any of these? Do you have a favorite nanny book? Tell us everything.
Tell us your favorite. We want to read them.
Yes.
Yeah. So thanks again for watching, guys. We'll see you in the next video.